Hemiparasites. Most plants make their own food. They take sunlight, water, carbon dioxide, and produce sugar. That is the deal. Hemiparasites broke part of the deal. A hemiparasite still photosynthesizes. It still has green leaves and does real work, but it also drills into a host plant and steals from it. The most familiar example is mistletoe, the plant people hang in doorways around Christmas, apparently not bothered by what it actually does for a living.
What the hell?
Mistletoe grows on the branches of trees. It has a specialized root-like structure called a haustorium, which it drives into the host's vascular tissue. From there, it pulls water and minerals. It does not take carbon from the host tree, but it is entirely dependent on the host for its water supply. So it is making its own food, but only because it is using the host's plumbing to stay hydrated enough to do so. Compared to its host, mistletoe pulls water aggressively, but does not turn sunlight into food as efficiently. So even though it stays green, it is still leaning hard on the tree. That becomes a bigger problem during drought. The host is already short on water, and the mistletoe keeps drawing from the same system. This can make water stress worse, weaken the canopy, and in severe cases contribute to branch dieback or tree death. Holoparasites. Holoparasites went further. They gave up photosynthesis entirely. No green leaves, no chlorophyll, and no sunlight harvesting. They depend completely on a host for water, minerals, and carbon. Everything a plant needs to survive. Broom rape, or the ghost plant, is a clear example. It produces spikes of flowers, purple, yellow, sometimes cream, that emerge directly from soil with no green parts anywhere. Broom rape attaches to host roots underground and pulls
everything it needs from there.
It has been documented parasitizing over 200 plant species, including
tomato,
sunflower, carrot, and
legumes.
In infested fields across the Mediterranean and Middle East, it has caused near-total crop failures. Every calorie it uses to flower, seed, came from the host. There is nothing in this organism that it produced itself. Root parasites. Root parasites do their work underground, which means by the time you notice them, they are already attached and feeding. Striga, commonly called witchweed, is the most consequential example. It parasitizes cereal crops, including sorghum, maize, and millet. Striga alone infests over 50 million hectares of farmland in Africa, causing annual economic losses of around $7 billion and affecting more than 300 million people.
They are dangerous. Look at this area that the weeds are at. Like, the sorghum did not survive.
What makes Striga particularly hard to manage is how it finds its host. It does not sprout and wander. Striga seeds can lie dormant in soil for decades, and they germinate only after detecting chemical signals called strigalactones, exuded by nearby host roots. Strigalactones are hormones the host plant produces naturally to regulate its own growth and to attract beneficial soil fungi. Striga detects those signals and treats them as confirmation that a host root is close enough to reach. Once it germinates, it has days to find and attach to that root before its stored energy runs out. So the seed waits, possibly for years, and then makes one fast, committed attempt. The unfair part is how it knows when to move. The host releases chemicals from its roots for its own reasons, including talking to helpful fungi in the soil. Striga picks up that signal and uses it like an invitation that was never meant for it. Stem parasites. Striga can wait years underground before making its move, but Dodder only has a few days. Dodder, the genus Cuscuta, operates above ground. It germinates from seed with almost no stored energy and no chlorophyll, which gives it a yellow or orange color. For that reason, the seed must grow a short distance, searching for a host. And when it finds one, it coils around the host stem and forms haustoria, specialized structures that penetrate the host's vascular tissue. The connections between Dodder and its hosts allow movement of not only water and small nutrients, but also macromolecules including mRNA, proteins, and viruses. Once attached, the Dodder strand continues growing. It forms additional haustoria along its length, building multiple connection points. It spreads across the host, and if conditions are good, it can extend to adjacent plant, effectively using the first host as a bridge. Dodder does not just grow near its host. It coils around it and installs a plumbing network. Xylem parasites. Xylem is the tissue that carries water and dissolved minerals upward through the plant from roots to leaves. Xylem parasites tap directly into that stream. The parasite is not just taking water. It is messing with the host's whole water system. Dwarf mistletoe, Arsuthobium, is the example of what sustained xylem parasitism does at scale. It specializes in conifers across the western United States and is classified as one of the most damaging forest pathogens in the region. Unlike regular mistletoe, dwarf mistletoe is small. and almost fully embedded in host tissue. Its hostorial system extends deep into the host's wood. The infection causes the tree to produce dense, distorted branch clusters called witch's brooms. The tree is redirecting resources in response to the parasite's interference with its internal water distribution. Regular mistletoe, the familiar kind, does the same thing at lower intensity. It maintains higher water loss than its host per unit of leaf area, while converting far less of that water into useful carbon, running the host's supply through itself inefficiently. Phloem parasites. Phloem carries sugars downward through the plant, the products of photosynthesis being distributed to where the plant needs them. Phloem parasites tap the sugar line. Dodder connects to both xylem and phloem simultaneously, which makes it one of the more complete parasites in this list. Water and sugar from the same host through the same hostorial network. But the phloem connection is where the relationship becomes genuinely strange. Research published confirmed that microRNAs from Cuscuta campestris move through the hostorial connection into host cells and interfere with host gene expression. They target host messenger RNAs and reduce their accumulation. The parasite is sending molecular signals into the host that alter how the host's own cells regulate themselves. The host sometimes responds in kind, pushing silencing signals back into the parasite through the same channel. This is not drainage. Through the same physical connection that carries sugar, Dodder may be actively interfering with how the host manages itself at the molecular level. Obligate parasites. An obligate parasite cannot complete its life cycle without a host. There is no backup plan. Striga is obligate. So are the broom rapes, plants in the genus Orobanche and related genera that parasitize a range of crops and wild plants. Obligate parasites in the Orobanchaceae family depend entirely upon a host for survival, and their germination requires host-derived chemical signals. If those signals are absent, the seed either stays dormant or eventually dies without ever germinating. This creates a genuine vulnerability. Researchers have looked at exploiting this dependency by developing synthetic strigalactone mimics that could trigger striga germination in fields with no host crop present. The seeds germinate, find no hosts, and die. This is called suicidal germination. It's also a process that begins sometime in your 20s. The obligate parasite is committed. It evolved every mechanism it has around a single strategy. And if that strategy fails, it will start selling a course on how to build a successful parasite mindset. Facultative parasites. Facultative parasites have a backup plan. They can survive without a host. They photosynthesize. They function as independent plants, and they can complete their life cycle without stealing anything. But given the choice, they will. Indian paintbrush is the example. These are the bright red or orange wildflowers, common across western North American grasslands and mountain meadows. Most people assume they are normal flowering plants. They are facultative root hemiparasites. They drive haustoria into the roots of neighboring grasses and shrubs and extract water and nutrients from them while continuing to photosynthesize. The plant survives in controlled conditions without a host. In its natural habitat, access to the host gives it an advantage. Attempts to grow Indian paintbrush in home gardens routinely fail because the neighboring host plants are not there. The plant is declining from the absence of something it does not strictly require, but relies on in practice. Endoparasites. Endoparasitic plants spend the majority of their existence inside the host's body. Rafflesia is the defining case. The entire vegetative body of the plant, everything that is not the flower, lives as filaments of tissue growing through the host vine's cells. From the outside, the host vine looks normal. There is no visible sign that it has been colonized. Then a bud forms, swells over weeks or months, and eventually opens into that enormous fleshy flower. For most of its life, Rafflesia is not a flower. It is a hidden infection. The flower is the only moment it becomes visible, and that glamorous moment is short-lived. The bloom lasts only a few days before collapsing. This life cycle means the plant has essentially inverted the normal plant model. Most of what a normal plant does above ground: grow, branch, photosynthesize. Rafflesia outsources entirely to the host. It retained only reproduction. Everything else got cut. Hyperparasites. A parasite can have its own parasite. It's like Inception, except the thief also gets robbed. The phenomenon of one parasitic plant exploiting another parasitic plant, broadly known as hyperparasitism or epiparasitism, is well described among bacteria, fungi, and animals, though it remains poorly understood among plants. The clearest examples come from mistletoes, which are already parasitizing trees. Some mistletoe species also parasitize other mistletoes growing on those same trees. They have even been spotted going 3 layers deep. A mistletoe on a mistletoe on a
It's time to stop!
In the temperate rainforests of southern Chile, researchers found that one generalist mistletoe species, Tristerix corymbosus, was parasitizing a second mistletoe, another mistletoe called Desmaria mutabilis, which was itself parasitizing a Nothofagus tree, a host that Tristerix normally cannot access directly. So the hyperparasite was not just stealing from a parasite, it was using the parasite as a bridge into a forest it had no other way into. It never touches the soil, but it becomes the final collection point for nutrients pulled up by everyone below it. Everything that steals enough nutrients can become worth stealing from. The hyperparasite simply noticed that first.